Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. It's good to be with you here on the beginning of the second week of the new year. This week, I'd like to just share some random ideas, maybe some random scriptures that come to mind, and see if they don't bless your life as well as they do mine. The first one comes from Psalm chapter 16. And beginning with verse 8, we find these words: I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad, and I rejoice. My body rests in safety, for you will not leave my soul among the dead, or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. Well, this is a pretty special passage. Can't get my page turned here. There we go. It starts out by the psalmist saying to God. Now, you know, I'm not sure how many times we misunderstand that we get to talk to God. We really do. I mean, we get to have a conversation with him. That's his choice. We can't make it happen, but he decrees that it's okay. And in those conversations with him, we raise thoughts and ideas that are run the gamut of all kinds of subjects. And here's one of them. Psalmist says, I know the Lord is always with me. Do you ever think about that? Wherever you go, whatever you do, God is there. Now, I don't mean that he's waiting to catch you doing something wrong. There are enough theologies running around that go in that direction, but I don't think that's what he's talking about here at all. He says, I know you're always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. Whatever happens in life, and lots of times bad things happen. I wish they didn't, but they do. And they happen to good people. Things just don't work out in this world the way that maybe you and I would plan them. Everything isn't good. This is a sinful world, and in a sinful world, bad things happen. That's just the way it is. Yet, even in the midst of that, we're not left to our own abilities. I know the Lord is always with me, the psalmist says. I will not be shaken because he's right beside me. Do you know that God's right beside you? Well, I mean, how are you supposed to know? You can't see him. No, doesn't look like there's anything there except the rug in the wall. We can't necessarily feel him. I don't feel anything at the moment except figuring out how I'm going to finish this devotion. But he's still there. Just because our five senses don't detect him doesn't mean he went anywhere. I know Missouri is the show me state. I'll believe it when you show it to me. Well, God shows himself all the time. We just don't look. And if we look, we don't see. So it's not his fault if we think we're alone, but we're not. And then the psalmist goes on to say, no wonder my heart is glad. I've met a lot of people in the last few weeks that didn't have a glad heart. you'd think at Christmas time they would be overjoyed. But do you know there are more suicides during Christmas than they are at any other one section of time in a year? Yeah, Christmas that's full of joy and bright lights and singing and giving presents and so on, that sort of thing, it is really depressing to some folks. In addition to all those other folks that are just downcast most of the time anyway. And I know, you know them, I do too. But here it says, no wonder my heart is glad. Is your heart glad? And what does that mean? It means that you're overflowing with enthusiasm for life. You know, God made us for a purpose. Now, I don't mean to do this one thing or do that one thing. That could be it. But He made us to be examples of Him wherever we go. And how can we be a witness, as some would say, when our heart isn't glad? I don't think it's possible. But our hearts are glad because God's always there. You see, it's not dependent on our circumstances. It's easy to love God when everything's going good, except most people even then don't. They figure they don't need Him. The key is to know this experience the psalmist is talking about. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. Then he goes on to talk about how when he dies, he's not going to be left to rot. And I don't ever think about that sort of thing. Maybe you do. I figure when life ends on this earth, whatever happens to my body is of no concern to me. It's just a temporary dwelling place anyway. And when I die, I fully expect and know that I'll be in God's presence. And well, maybe my body will look a little better than it does. At least I won't have to worry about gaining weight up there. But he goes on to say, God, you, will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. Do you know the way of life? Is that part of who you are? Is that part of what people recognize about you? Do they see you and go, wow, something's really good about that person? Or do they say something else? This psalm gives us the key to living a life and living it abundantly. And if that's not where you are, I encourage you to move to a better place in the arms and the presence of God. Well, thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a really great week. If you have a need or a concern, call us. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. So until tomorrow, God bless you. I'll talk to you again.